Okay, enough of me talking because I'm so excited for this group that we have talking with you today. It was intentionally diverse, not just in race and ethnicity, but also in thought and industry. I wanted to make sure that we had several different perspectives when we talk about personal branding, because it is not singular, it is not universal, it's very unique to the person, and also super important when we're talking about, as Haley stated, entering the workforce, leveling up, making new connections. It all boils down to your personal brand and what that is. So we're gonna get into it today. So first and foremost, I would love for the panelists just to introduce yourselves, who you are, name and title if applicable, and very briefly what it is that you do.
I'll go first. I am Alexis Tirado, proud Salvi, Boricua. I don't know if anyone out there is one or the other. I'm a senior director at Worthi. I do a lot of Latin social media for them. One of our big accounts is HBO Max. Also work with GoFundMe, Bumble. Prior to Worthi, I worked at Netflix leading Condolo, which is their US Latina brand. I led Federal-like at BuzzFeed. There might be some folks here who grew up with BuzzFeed. I just saw a tweet that said it's now old media, which makes me feel old. And yes, worked for celebrities like Martha Stewart and Alicia Keys. So excited to talk about branding. That's me. I'm a Virgo too.
Well, I think I'll go next so we can have a little bit of a Virgo takeover. I'm Sabrina Garba, and I am the founder and CEO of Glass Ladder Group, which is a cultural strategy and communications firms. So we work across sectors, nonprofit, for-profit, government organizations, and also some advocacy work to help build thought leadership strategies around any important impact you could work you can think of. So how do we prepare leaders who want to go out and make change in the world to be seen in a respected light, and to be seen authentically as who they are? And that journey of building Glass Ladder Group also led me to develop a couple of programs for women leaders that help them to specifically address the challenges with brand building. So I'm really excited to be here today and talk a little bit about the hard truth of, quite frankly, starting a company at 25 and what that means for your brand, and what happens as you mature through the development over a decade.
I guess I can go. I'm not a Virgo, sorry y'all, but big ups to Virgo season. I love y'all. My name is Ebony LaDelle. I am a sort of former marketing strategist. I worked in book publishing for a little over 10 years. I got to work on some big books. You might know some of them. The Hate You Give was one of them by Angie Thomas. I got to work on some of the Obama properties before I ventured into my second stage of my career, which is being an author. I wrote a book. It's called Love Radio. I'm showing y'all the cover. Anybody interested in romance, please pick it up. And in addition to that, I'm slowly starting my consultant company in marketing. I've had the pleasure to work with Elizabeth Acevedo, who, if you guys are familiar with her, she's a best-selling author. And recently I worked on Jay Ellis from Insecure, Team Lawrence, for his book, Did Everybody Have Imaginary Friends? So excited to talk to you guys about sort of like the hybrid of, like, you know, having your own career, your own branding versus branding for other folks as well. And I'm a Gemini. I had to say that too.
I'm happy to go next. Hi, I'm Jesse Uram. I am the VP of Strategic Partnerships here at Ventureland and Pretty Bird. My role here, you know, we're a independent production company that does film, television, documentaries, and has kind of a brand and entertainment division, as well as a full stack commercial production company. My job is to really do the business development and strategy partnerships across all of that. And prior to being here, I helped build a company called Westbrook with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, that was film, television, digital and social, and brand work. Worked on projects like Red Table Talk, Bel Air, a number of other things with the family, including that book tour and many other infamous things that emanated therefrom. And prior to that, I was an agent at CAA for 10 years, and really ran the gamut. Started as brands financing content, then it was early digital content. I'm talking AOL and Yahoo series. Then it was early VR, then it was digital influencers, and then it all kind of snowballed into doing 360 client management for kind of our big hybrid clients, like Scooter Braun's portfolio, Bad Robot and JJ Abrams, will.i.am, Daft Punk, people that didn't really fit into just music touring or just film and television, help kind of play a management and strategy role across their business, including corporate clients like IMAX, Mattel, the Mayo Clinic. So when it comes to building a personal brand, I've had to change my story 8 million times, depending on the room that I'm in. So more than happy and excited to be here to help. Yeah, that's a bit about me. Thanks, guys. I'm a Cancer, so.
Cancer. I was like, where are the cancers?
I knew she was going to say something.
So I will go next. I'm Staci Freeman. I am a Virgo as well. So yay. And I'm in recruiting and business operations at William Morris Endeavor, so WME, talent agency. I'm excited to be here to connect with everybody today. A little bit about what my focus and my career is focused on is cultivating the next generation of WME assistants and future agents who are going to redefine what the entertainment industry is, right? So really happy to share some insights today, and thanks for having me on the panel.
See, I told you this group was incredible. Like listen, I know some of them personally, but I just love that we were able to bring such an incredible group together for this conversation. Because like I said before, it's so important that we have diverse perspectives when we talk about personal brand, because it doesn't look the way. So let's jump into it. First and foremost, there are probably people on here who don't know what a personal brand is. Like I know, like if you're new to the industry, it's like kind of like a buzzword a little bit. We hear a lot about resumes and portfolios and interviewing, but personal branding is in that mix, right? So what is a personal brand? Let's start simple. Like, what does that mean? What is it? Do we all have one? Do we all need one?
You know, it's really interesting because the concept of a personal brand for me sometimes feels like a commercialization of who we are. And simply put, I really think it's about you being able to integrate who you are and who you're becoming and connect with people based off of them, and how you communicate that to individuals. And it's in the simple things. It could, for some people, be surface things like the way that you dress. For some people, it could be the way that you speak and the language that you use. It could be the knowledge area that you choose to focus on. So I think your brand is someone's experience of who you are and who you have chosen to show up as.
I think that's a lovely answer, and I'll give my callous answer on top of that too, which is just on the biz dev side. Like when you get further into these industries, there's a lot of people in them. And I think the number one thing is, why is someone calling you? Or what? If I'm trying to recall of like, hey, I need help with XYZ thing, and I'm trying to think about who to call, I need to be able to answer the question of why I'm calling you, because I could go in a lot of different directions. So that, and just, you know, I'm a big fan of be a person that people want to spend time with, which is a nice little add on top of that.
I think these answers are incredible, and so I'm not going to add too much to it, but I will say part of your branding, I was actually just talking to an author about this who was like, you know, I feel like sort of my brand is all over the place. And I'm like, no, it's not. Your brand isn't all over the place, because your brand is you. And knowing yourself is a key component in understanding like what your brand is. This particular author, when she first came out, she wasn't doing the things that everybody was supposed to do, but she was very true in her work. And so she knew the type of work that she was writing. And I think when we talk about book publishing, I'm not going to get too like nerd out. I'm not going to nerd out too much, but there are genres, there are types of books that people choose to write. And sometimes when you step out of those genres, it makes the publishing industry uncomfortable. And for her, she's a person that steps outside of the genre, but because of the type of writing that she does, people go to her because they recognize at the end of the day, her brand is going to be like steeped in these three things. You know, it's going to be steeped in Blackness, it's going to be steeped in this and that. And so I think it's really important, like, you know yourself more than anybody else, and you know the unique perspective that you bring. And so that is part of branding yourself, is recognizing those things. And that is your superpower. That is what's going to get your foot in the door over someone else.
I just want to add quickly, like, also, I think I work in social media, like that's been my bread and butter for most of my career. That is your brand. When you're looking for, if you're applying for a job, people are looking at your social media, what you're putting there. So if you want to keep it private, keep it private. But if it's public, you know, streets are watching, we're seeing everything. So whether you love it or not, I do think social media is part of your brand. It doesn't have to be everything. I also think something that Jesse said is reputation, especially in entertainment. I'm sure Staci can speak on this too, is, are you good to work with? How were you as an intern? And Hollywood is like high school. People talk, people know who's toxic, people know who's cool, who you want to work with, who is not shady. So I think your reputation speaks for itself, but also I think when you're kind of trying to come up in this industry, if your social media is public, it is part of your brand.
And I'll piggyback off that. So when you think of your personal brand, think of it as your online and your offline vibe, right? So it's your unique, I can't even talk, your unique story and reputation. It can include everything from your values, your skills, your personality, and it helps to shape how people see you in both personal and professional spaces. So they're looking at you at all different ways. When we talk about social media as well, everyone has a personal brand, and whether we're aware of it or not. So every post that you're making, every conversation you have, it all contributes to how people are going to perceive you. It's like your digital footprint, but it extends into real life interactions too. So people may know who you are before you're even in that space because of how you've presented outside. That would be my 2 cents on that.
No, that's so true. And it reminded me because I don't think enough people are prioritizing self-discovery. Like we hear a lot about manifestation and doing all these things on a personal, but in your career, like I always am trying to discover new things about myself. You should know your strengths or weaknesses, how you show up in the world, how you connect with people, you know, what you need to work on, what you're great at, what you have to offer. But not enough people are taking the time to actually do the self-discovery work. And that applies to career too. So that's the starting point, which we'll get into later. But, you know, as we discuss like what the personal brand is, like why is it even important? Like, why is it important? And then how do you take steps to cultivate your personal brand? Now that we know what it is, like, now what? Like, what do we do?
So I have a little bit of a story here. Like, I think personal brand is important because it lays a foundation and is your life vest always. Like over the course of a lifetime, as we saw, things happen. You might have a really great job. You might have a job that's not great. Your business might be going successful. It might not be going successful. But your brand is that buoy that you can always grab onto so that people know that they can trust to work with you. So I'll give you a quick story. I started my company 10 years ago. I did everything wrong in the last 10 years. I overspent money. I didn't necessarily have the best contract execution in the beginning time, but over time, I've continued to improve and improve and improve. And now there are moments, so I was at the Congressional Black Caucus last week, and 5 congressmen stopped me on the street who I had no idea knew who I was. But that's as a result of the fact that I continue to grow and I continue to build that brand. So there's a buoy now. So maybe 5 years ago, I was like, this business ain't gonna make it. But now I can say it is because of the fact that I continue to strengthen my brand and my relationships. And what I was putting out publicly was the truth about when things were challenging, but also the truth about the things that were really successful and the impact that we were able to make.
To add to Shari, number one, what you were saying about self-discovery, that's critical. Like, you're so right. I don't think, again, when we talk about what you offer, a lot of people will try to tell you what they think you can offer. And that might not be your strengths, right? But people are going off of what they know as well. So you have to remember that. A little story that I will tell you is when I worked in publishing, for the amount of time I worked in publishing, I didn't really think that I was doing much. I didn't think I was affecting a lot of change. But what I realized was my brand was actually that I was championing books by BIPOC people. And so I was the one going into meetings to acquire titles and saying, why are we not choosing this title? Why are we not doing this? I was the one having to go into cover meetings and saying, hey, when you put braids on a cover, they don't come out of your hair like this. You know, I was the one doing those specific key things that really helped shape the industry. And it wasn't until I left it that I realized, like, oh, there was a lot that I did here that I didn't even realize that I was doing. That was part of my branding. And what I realized too is, and it's very important to think about branding, I know a lot of people here are like, I want to start my own business. I don't want to deal with the corporate structure. And that's fair. And I will say, if you unfortunately feel like you still have to go into a corporate structure, you have to recognize in there that that is part of your branding, because the work that I'm doing now with, so my consultant firm is called Coloring Books, and it's a slow but steady build. But all of the work that I've gotten has been off of referrals. I haven't even had to launch it. And I didn't want to because I feel like I'm still starting, I'm slowly building up. But it's amazing how people have just been telling people about me, so much so that I've had to turn people away. And so it's really important to recognize that you are branding right now. You know what I mean? Coming right out of college, you're branding right now, and how that can help shape your future.
I completely agree with all this. I think as you build, a lot of it has to do with your brand is a reason that people trust you and want to refer you, and trust is a big part, which I want to go back for a second to the point that you were making about knowing yourself. Yes, your brand on Instagram matters. Yes, all these things matter, but I also don't want you to stress yourself out to no end. I think this is like a problem that I know you guys have to live up to every expectation and feel like every piece of your life is online and then under scrutiny. And that doesn't mean you need to overextend what you think you are to a thing that you aren't. And it's going to take you a minute to get there. And it's really important to take that time, because if you put out a fake persona, you're not going to build that trust, and it doesn't really matter, because then everyone's going to be like, what is this guy talking about? So absolutely take the time to learn who you are. You're not going to get it on the first go around. Like, it's going to take a second. But the more authentic that thing can be, the more you it can be while going towards your goal. That's how you build more trust. And that's the really important piece.
And I guess I would add, I mentioned a little bit about this before, but your personal brand is your first impression, right? It's how you stand out in a crowded field, and personal branding builds connection as well. And when I think of the entertainment industry, your personal brand is often your introduction before you even speak. And it's how people will perceive your actions, social media, and your interactions in general. But it's also how you're going to stand out, right? So like leverage that. If I were to talk about how to cultivate it though, there would be, I feel like 4 things to focus on. So being authentic, it's important to be authentic. Pretending, you can't continue that, right? So be who you are, and that's what people will remember about you. You don't have to have it all figured out yet, but it's like staying true to yourself is going to be the most important part. Showcasing what you're passionate about, and don't try to be something that you're not. Authenticity is an extremely, extremely powerful tool. It's something that I live by on a daily basis, where the person that I am right now is the same person that you see like at dinner at night or at work or what have you. So it's being who you are and being comfortable in your own skin is critical. I'd then say consistency, that's key. So making sure your message is consistent across all platforms, whether it's when we're using social media, if I'm using LinkedIn, Instagram, or in-person interactions, people trust what they see repeatedly. So let your personal brand tell the same story everywhere. Again, that ties back to being yourself in all spaces. Networking with purpose. So when you're connecting with people, focus on building real relationships, not surface level. So really digging in and making them real relationships, not just connecting contacts. Oh, I connected with so-and-so, or I connected with so-and-so. You can share your passion, you can ask for advice and offer your perspective. Authentic networking, when I think about it, is more valuable than just self-promotion, right? And the last thing I'm going to say is let your brand evolve. So remember, your brand will grow with you, and don't stress about getting it perfect today, tomorrow, what have you. It's going to evolve. And as you gain experience, your brand will shift, and that's a good thing. So be open to evolution.
Man, all of these are absolute gems. I hope y'all are taking notes or saving this chat at the end, because like even I'm learning something, because it's just so incredible. And I just kind of want to piggyback off of what was said. Like entertainment, creativity, it's a relationship-based business. And so I want to stress that. And when we say, if you hit it on the nail, Staci, like sometimes things are transactional, but for the most part, you should be focused on building solid relationships. I got my last 3 jobs because of relationships, because somebody knew me and they're like, Shari's dope, we should hire her. We did lunch and I was hired, boom. Nobody looked up what school I went to or my resume. They just, my reputation spoke for itself, to Jesse's point. So it is so crucial, especially now in today's market. People are relying a lot on referrals and relationships because it's a competitive market. So please make that your focus. And then knowing your why. We hear, I mean, these are buzzwords all the time. Like, know your why, be authentic, but it's so true, because you never know what people are looking for, what they need and want. And if you're presenting a fake persona, but they really need the real you, like they need the tatted girl with the septum piercing and the long butt length locks who is like, uses her hands. That's who they need. But I'm pretending to be someone else, and I completely missed an opportunity, you know? So these are just so great. And I know that Ebony and I think it was Sabrina told their personal stories about, and I want to use that as a segue to the next question. In your line of work, because you represent 5 different industries and lines of work, how have you leveraged your brand to amplify the work that you do? Like if you could share a story or a specific example just to kind of bring it home.
So one example is something that I realized in my personal brand that I had to do that was very scary. And Shari, she knows, she's known me for a little bit, so she can appreciate how I had to evolve, which, Staci, I love that you said that your brand has to evolve, because that was something that happened with me. I was very much a person that liked to be behind the scenes. I was the shy book nerd. And so obviously that worked very well for me to be in marketing. But I also knew that I wanted to write. I've been wanting to write since I was little. And so I knew that I was going to have to put myself out there, because times change. When I was young, you had a writer, you didn't know what they looked like. It was like, oh, I read this book. If I look on the back, maybe I'll see their picture and that's it. So I was like, that's great. I can be this writer. Nobody will know who I am. But then social media really started to evolve and branding started to evolve. And so I knew I had to put myself out there more. And so one of the things that I started to do was we would have these interview series. So we partnered with this a book club called Bellatrix. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bellatrix, but they've had books become movies. And it's been great experience for me, because they asked me to co-host a series with them where we interviewed authors. And I hated doing the interviewing process of it, but I did it because I knew I had to push myself. And so I think it was a great experience for me in terms of learning how to talk about books, how to talk about my own books, but also it elevated my brand in ways I had never even imagined. And if it wasn't for that, it probably would have hindered me getting a book deal. And so that's why I say, like, part of your branding, if there are things that you know that would help you, that will help elevate your brand, that speaks again to the things that you're trying to do not limit yourself, because you don't know where it could take you.
I think one of the things that I dealt with a lot in my career was I took a lot of jobs that on paper I didn't want to do. And I think this gets to the, like, your resume is one thing, but your relationships are another. I, in no way, shape, or form wanted to go to a talent agency, and I spent 10 years there. I in no way, shape, or form wanted to work in digital, and I did that. I in no way, shape, or form wanted to work on brands, and I've done that my entire career. And what it took me a second to realize was that it's what you make of it, and it's not the job title. Meaning, I went to brands and an agency because the woman who interviewed me said, it doesn't matter if you don't care about brands. If you like film, television, video games, music, the one thing that connects all of them is brands, and you'll meet everybody, which was exactly true. When I got to digital, I was like, I don't really want to represent influencers, but you know what? Representing people changed the way that people had a relationship with me within the agency. And it led to other things. It wasn't that it was digital, it was that it was talent representation. It wasn't that it was brands, it was about understanding the media landscape. I think those are the things that every time I've gone to a new place, I've made sure that I understood what the challenge was and how it could relate to what my skill set could be coming out of it, not just what the title said on the piece of paper, because again, that only matters in a world where you're submitting CVs. The rest is about relationships and experience.
I really love that. And I think it just comes back to the fact that things are full circle. Like, we don't always know what we're learning when we're learning it, but we'll always need it later. And the longer that you have a career or a brand, you start to see something that you did 10, 15 years ago, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need that. And I have that connection and I have that relationship. And that's critical.
So my story is a little bit different, right? So I began my career deeply rooted in mathematics and data analytics, believing that the numbers would tell that full story, right? So I quickly discovered that true lasting success isn't just about the data. It's about people and unlocking their full potential. And I would say over the past 15 years, I've blended the precision of data analytics with the power of human connection, those relationships. So my journey began in HR many years ago, but have worked in technology, worked within the big four public accounting, so both at EY and PwC. And now as a global senior director at WME, I've led transformations in how we recruit, develop, and retain talent. So being able to leverage those skills and ever evolving. My focus, though, has always been on shaping organizations that are not just efficient, but also inclusive. Places where diversity drives innovation and people can bring, what was I talking about earlier? Their whole self to work, where you can be authentically you. And at WME, my purpose is clear. It's, as I mentioned earlier, to cultivate the next generation of agents and assistants who are going to redefine the entertainment industry. We're building more than careers, we're building leaders. And that is my focus. And so through process transformations, workforce analytics, and a strengthened global brand, I ensure we're always growing, evolving, what have you. And I would say the most important lesson from my journey is that impact isn't measured by titles or accolades or what have you. It's about the people that you're uplifting the culture that you're creating, and the legacy that you're effectively leaving behind. This drives me every day while I'm at WME and throughout my entire career, knowing that my work is shaping the future of this industry and empowering tomorrow's leaders. And ultimately, my personal journey that is that when you combine strategy with empathy, because that's critical as well, and data with heart, you can transform not just a company, but lives. And that I love to see that, right? So I'm impacting human beings. And this evolution of my personal brand reflects a commitment to fostering environments where everyone has that opportunity to thrive, the opportunity to grow, and opportunity to evolve. So that's my input there. So thank you.
Everybody dropping knowledge. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, so I want to kind of switch gears a bit, because obviously most of the attendees on this call are still in school, and university students and or recent grads. So I do want to tailor this question to them, because I think a lot of times when we have these conversations, I don't want anyone on this call to feel like, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I'm not in the workforce yet, or that doesn't apply to me because I just graduated, or I haven't graduated yet, or I'm not in school, whatever the case may be. This applies to everyone, it applies to me, the panelists. You should never stop working towards evolving, as Staci put it, your personal brand. So that being said, though, I want to tailor this question to, if they are in school or they are a recent grad, then what is that like? What should they be thinking about now? Like, what questions should they be asking themselves now as they're in school or preparing to graduate or have just graduated? What should they be asking themselves? Or maybe if you have educators on the call, what should they be fostering in their classrooms for other students and alum to take advantage of? What kind of questions or workshopping should they be doing?
I would say the number one question is, what is the character and health of my relationships? How do I connect with people, right? So sometimes we come to school and you might connect laterally. So the students in your classrooms that are with you, but how many of you have spent time in your administration building, or have, gone to knock on the door of the president of the university? It's about curating that courage that takes you from what we call being a hawk, which flies at a certain level, and being an eagle. So what you can really do is curate the type of confidence that it takes to have the conversations with the people that can help your brand to continue to triplicate and can also always be a resource for you. So if you're thinking about, quite frankly, the power dynamics and the different dimensions that you can touch, like, school is a great place to practice that. Thinking about your relationships at all levels, and then replicating that again and again and again throughout life.
I think for anyone who's been in an internship and has had success, I think it's so important to showcase your work online. So I have an example of this. April Max, one of our clients, we work on Palante, which is a Latina social media. We had an intern this summer, and she wrote this really great LinkedIn post about how much fun she had in the summer, how much she learned. And I put a comment on it, and I was like, girl, you had a viral video with In the Heights that got like thousands of views, and she didn't talk about that. So then I privately messaged her, and I was like, hey, you should do a LinkedIn post about this specific thing you did. And I want to be honest with everyone in this room. When she pitched it to me, I wasn't sure. And I was like, oh, look, let's just try it. Social media is about putting things on the wall, see what sticks. And she was right. I was so wrong, and it did so well. And she did not mention that on her LinkedIn post. So I'm hoping she does a follow-up post and showcases that specific work. It doesn't have to be on LinkedIn. I know a lot of college students aren't on LinkedIn. You can do like a TikTok story time about how you pitched this and how it did really well on the internet, on Instagram Reels or whatever. But please, if you're a college student and you have an internship, you have a successful deck you created, a viral video, you interviewed a celebrity on the red carpet, showcase your work online.
I think, to the point of figuring out who you are, I think that the two things I would say are, if you're still in school, absolutely take a class that you are not thinking is important. Like, take the thing that is a step removed. The best classes I took at USC were video game classes that absolutely taught me digital platforming, non-traditional media. Even though I was interning at film production companies, it helped more than any film class that I took. And so always try the thing that you don't think is necessarily for you, because you're going to be surprised by that, which totally dovetails with, oh my God, go intern at places. This is your opportunity to go meet. You meet your network. You figure out what you want to do a lot more. even if it's a dud, try. And it can look like two things. For me, I had friends that went to a different internship every quarter. I went to a small production company and stayed in it for 3 years, and they just wound up letting me do way more than I should have done at the age of 18, which worked for me because I wanted to work. I wanted to get going, and that helped me just as much as bopping around would have. So don't think that there's any one path, but just make sure you're getting out there and doing something and getting to know the people in your world.
I would say number one, while you're in school, pursue the hobbies, all the activities, even work study opportunities that you don't think are that important. I got a work study job at my bookstore thinking this will just help me with my finances, and also I'll get a discount on books. And it really propelled my publishing career because I never considered like, oh, there is a whole industry behind making these books. And so I thought I just wanted to be a writer, but it allowed me to sort of use my creative chops in marketing and branding to be able to do that as well. I would also say that when it comes to getting out of school and getting the job, you might not get the job that you necessarily want, but understand that how it can benefit you in the future. This is just a step forward. So don't feel defeated if like the first job you got out of undergrad or graduate school is not the job for you. You never know what sort of information that you can gain from that. And the last thing I will say is, and I'm all about this, shoot your shot with executives that you are really interested in. Like get on LinkedIn, send them a message. And I think what's really important in terms of getting this networking opportunity, because this is something that I used to do, is don't ask for a ton of their time, right? Like say, hey, I would love to maybe like meet you somewhere and like treat you to coffee or even a virtual coffee where I could just ask you questions. Come prepared with like some legit questions, and you will be surprised. The people that I got jobs for in publishing were the ones that came to me and blew me away with their questions, where it's like, wow, like you're serious about this work. And so I was able to like say, you know what, I'll look over your resume. I'll see what I can do. So it's really important to, you never know, you might be able to get a mentor from it, or you just might be able to gain someone that you are able to connect with in the future. But part of making those connections is being inquisitive first, like showing respect to the people who have been doing this work for a long time and slowly building relationship with them by showing them how serious you are about what you're trying to do. And so I've had people who they've reached out to me, and then if I got a job promotion, they would say, congratulations. They just made sure to keep that connection going. And it made it so much easier for me to be like, you know what, I can give you the world here.
And it's such a two-way connection, right? So like you're pouring into them, they're also in turn pouring back into you and lifting you up, like you're lifting them up. So I love that example. When I think of essential questions to discover or fine tune your personal brand, there are a few things, or more than a few, that come up for me. So when I sat down to think about it, I'm like, okay, well, what are you passionate about, right? So start with the heart of your brand, your passion. And when you ask yourself that, so what's driving you? What am I genuinely excited about every day? It could be music, it could be tech, it could be design, activism, but your passion is what fuels your brand, and people are truly drawn to that energy. And I can feel it when I am speaking about my passions, people are drawn to it, and vice versa, right? When I think about core values, writing down, what are your core values? What principles do you truly stand by? Maybe it's creativity, collaboration, or just in general making a difference in other people's lives. Your brand should align with what's most important to you, because that's authentically you. Another one would be, what's your unique skill set or talent? Because again, you are the only person that is you. You are the only person living your experience. So everyone has a unique skill or talent that is going to set them apart. So what do you do better than most people? Maybe you're a pro when it comes to digital marketing. I am not, but maybe somebody else is. So, or maybe you're an amazing event organizer, or great at just being that natural connector. That is something that I believe in, where I am a natural connector, making sure your brand is highlighting your unique skill or talent. I would say also, what do you want to be known for? What is your legacy? How do you create that? And what do I want people to say about me when I'm not in that room? So what are you imparting on them about you? This will help to shape how you present yourself. Another one, who's your audience? So that's a key thing to consider. Who are you trying to reach? Your audience could be potential employers, collaborators, fans of your work, what have you, but knowing your audience helps to craft that detailed message. And the last one is going to be, how do you want to evolve? So I talked about evolution earlier, but how can I grow? That's something you want to ask yourself. Your brand isn't set in stone, right? So it will evolve with you. So staying open to learning. I am an infinite learner. It's something where I'm always wanting to be better at whatever I'm doing. And I'm not competing with others, I'm competing with myself every day. How am I going to challenge myself to be better every single day? The same thing that I'm imparting on those that I mentor. How are you going to be better every day? But I'm also not just open to the learning and the new experiences, but I'm not afraid to fail. So wanting to make sure you're not afraid to fail, because this will also help to shape you and refine your brand over time. So thank you.
The one thing I'll add too, because this took me a long time to figure out, and it's what I was saying a little bit before, which is when I'm figuring out my passion, I thought that that answer to that question was music or sports or TV, not I like connecting dots and figuring things out. I like breaking a new model. I think we always get stuck, and it's the nature of this industry. And oh, I'm a film person, because yeah, you do have to specialize at certain points, but when you're at your stage that you're at, try to figure out what part of the actual act of doing the job excites you, because it's actually the thing that's going to be the most important as you move forward.
I have a little bit of a controversial perspective. Don't get caught in the purpose trap. I wasted 7 years asking myself what my purpose was. That's a waste of time. Like, put your feet down and do work and see what you feel energized by. Like the areas in which you're starting to make an impact and you feel excited and you got an extra flip in your hair, a pep in your step because you're doing that. Like that gives you, those are the little drops of breadcrumbs that tell you that you're moving in the right direction. But if you from right now try to figure out what your end of life purpose is, you are going to be spinning around for quite some time. So the best bet is just to follow your instincts around, like, this feels good, I'm learning something, I'm being challenged, I'm excited about this, and I'm getting to connect with people. And the other thing is the questions that you can ask yourself to make it really easy is, who are the people around me? Because they're mirrors of who you're choosing to be, right? And 2 is, what are the things that I gravitate to? You know, like, I am an avid book reader, but there is 100 million books that I have that I've never read. But I can still go back to those books in my bookshelf and identify what was interesting to me in them. And that's a part of me. So really starting to pick up the little seeds and the breadcrumbs of who you are along the way without creating this pressure of having to be this holistic, I've got it figured out person is the thing that is key for self-discovery and having a strong self-concept for yourself. No matter what I discover about myself, good, bad, and indifferent, I'm going to stay in relationship to myself to adjust, to build, to create another perspective and aspect, and to lean into who I want to connect with. One thing that Staci said that I thought was really powerful is, who is your audience? You can look at that from a business perspective. Target, who is your audience? But in your personal life, who is your audience means, who do you want to be around? Who do you want to spend time with? Who do you want to connect with? And are you in alignment with them? And if not, then you have some work to do. And just paying attention to, like, am I in alignment with the places, people, and things and experiences that I want to have, will help you to answer that question around your personal brand.
And 2, I'll just add 2, because we always hear it, but you're going to hear it 85 million more times. Why do I want to do this? Like, it's such a simple question, but you'll be surprised how many people I've talked to, and I'm like, why do you want to do this? And they're like, and that's the first thing you need to know, is a clear POV. Why the heck do I want to create films? Why do I want to be a strategist? Why do I love editing? Like, you need to ask yourself that, like, why do I like to do this? And it needs to be clear and confined, because almost always when you talk to someone and you don't have a clear POV or know why you want to do this, you lost them. Okay.
I would interview people all the time at CAA, and I'd be like, oh, just what are your favorite movies or TV shows? And they'd be like, I don't really watch anything. I'm like, then why are you here? I don't understand.
I've heard that with books too. Same.
Yeah, it's like,
don't apply for a job if you ain't read any of the books on the list. One, just pick one and talk passionately about it. That's it.
Spend some time with yourself, okay? Spend some time with yourself. Look, listen, I love getting to know Shari. She's so dope. She's so fascinating, because I do the work, and I want to know more about me constantly, okay? But I wanted to go back a little bit about the networking, because I've talked to so many people who are like, but what if they don't respond? Guess what, guys? Ghosting is a real thing in this industry. I don't like it. I wish it was different, but I'm here to tell you that's never gonna go away. People gonna ghost you, okay? But did you?
Ghosting is like dating. Like you get ghosted in the dating. I'm married now, but like you get ghosted in the dating world for every, and this is, I had this as one of my pieces of advice, but like for 99 doors that close, that one door will open. Someone will say yes, and it could change your career. You might get this incredible job. But like, I think that when I first moved to LA, I would send LinkedIns. I think at like 25 LinkedIns, one person said yes. I was like, oh my God, okay, 15 minutes. What, let me know your avails. Like I was thirsty to meet people. I love people and I'll always down for a coffee. But yes, I think that you have to like give yourself like, okay, I'm going to message these 25 people. I know who they are. I'm going to send them a thoughtful message. It might take you an hour and a half max. And then see who responds. I bet one person will respond out of the 25. One person will.
When it comes to ghosting, just don't pay it any attention. And the reason I say that is because there are people that I hunted down for 3 years. I'm talking about I'm emailing every single quarter. And guess what? 3 years later, they messaged me. I didn't have an attitude about it. I didn't care. It led to a really big contract. So just understanding that timing is everything. And sometimes your reputation has to mature enough to get that for someone to say like, I see what they've been doing. I see they've been staying in contact with me. So some of those people who've been following me over the years, they've been following me. They might not have been responding to my answers and my emails, but they know everything I've been up to. And then the moment that was right, they were there. And so I think that that's something that being entrepreneurial is really important around. It's just knowing that like you're going to have to pitch yourself over and over and over again. And at the right moment, that person will be there if they're the right person, but not to take it personal if you don't hear back, because there's 100 million other people that you have an opportunity to connect with.
Yeah, the don't take it personal thing. This one's, in dating too, this took me a long time, but never know what the heck anyone's going through at any moment in time. Like, my God, like I have a busy day today. I've got a lot of stuff going on. If somebody messaged me and I missed it, like, or like, even if I saw it and I was like, so even like I've read it and I've been left unread, like I could have forgotten about it 5 minutes later because I was busy doing something else. Don't take it personally. These things come back. You wind up running into the person in real life a year later. Like, it's okay. Just keep trying. Don't think it's about you or them.
That's so important. And I know we have a few minutes left before we get to Q&A, but also too, I just wanted to stress that I consider myself an extrovert, shocker, but you do not have to be an extrovert. That's such an outdated myth. Like, oh, well, I'm not like showy, and it doesn't matter. I know so many successful, incredible introverted people. Okay. Did you know most directors are introverts? Most directors are introverts. And so I want to just smash that myth. You don't have to be all in someone's face using spirit fingers and doing the most to be successful. It's true. And I just want to drive that point home. And two, the one trick pony life, we need to be adding tools to our toolbox constantly, learning new skills. I think Jesse brought up learning new skills, like thinking outside the box. What other skills can I learn and master? Because having one niche skill is just, it's not it anymore, unfortunately. It may have worked ages ago, but in this market, you should constantly be learning new skills, adding tools to your toolbox, and mastering them, not just dibble dabbling, but actually curating and mastering skills to add to your toolbox, okay? So if you're a filmmaker, learn how to edit, learn how to produce, be a triple threat, okay? A quadruple threat, whatever, okay? So I just wanna, to that point, my last question is I always wanna make sure that attendees leave with tangible resources that they can plug into. So do you know of any articles, forums, organizations, pages they should be following that people can plug into that would help them begin to cultivate their brand? For the panelists, if you can drop it in the chat, because everyone's going to save the chat, right? Yes. So if you have any resources or anything that you can think of, please drop it in the chat for our attendees so they can move forward and forge a path to start creating their own brand. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Please private message me directly. If you do not private message me directly, I will not ask your question, okay? So they're coming in already, they're coming in hot. First question, this is for any panelist who wants to chime in. How do you know when you should just go in on your own things versus when to work for someone and get experience, or is there not a perfect time? So how do you know when you should just go in and do your own thing versus when to work for someone and just gain experience, or is there not a perfect time?
If I had to do it over again, I probably would have worked for someone else a little bit longer. and done my own thing at the same time, because there are some foundational business things that I learned that were critical to being successful. When we are learning how to do our jobs, we're learning how to do our jobs. We're not learning how to run a business. So just understanding that you have to have enough experience to juggle all of the things. You won't just be able to be a filmmaker. You'll also need to be a business manager. And you'll also need to be, an editor. And you'll also need to be an accountant sometimes and a marketer. And so, making sure that you have the resources and the relationships to support that journey is really critical. But I am one of those people that's like, throw all the spaghetti at the world. It's not a if or and. Like for me, if somebody came to me and was like, hey, love for you to work for us 40% of the time or 60. If it was a good offer, I'd take it, and we could navigate and manage the business, but it's about giving yourself that flexibility. And at the end of the day, you can't be creative as you want to when you're in scarcity mindset. So like, what do you need to make sure that you can be your best self? If that's a check, then make sure you got your check. If that is a certain environment, make sure you have that as well.
I completely agree with what you're saying. I think for me, when I started coloring books, it was actually years ago, like it was almost a decade ago. And I was like, I'm tired of publishing, not promoting books by people of color. And so it started as like a newsletter, and I knew I wanted to do something else with it later on in life. But I realized that I just wasn't at the place to be like, okay, this is the actual thing I want to do. If you have an idea, if you have a concept and you're like, it's not ready to launch yet, still play around with it. It's not something that you need to reveal to the world, but it's something that you should be like cultivating within yourself. And there's a part of me that's like, I want to quit and start this thing, but things kept happening where I kept getting opportunities and I kept moving up. And what I realized is, being in the industry for as long as I did, I was able to cultivate relationships that have solidified me in ways that I couldn't have even imagined before. It allowed me to understand systems and ways of doing things that I wouldn't have been able to understand on my own. Publishing is a very it's so weird, the knowledge. You don't really know what's going on unless you're in it. And so I wouldn't have known what was missing and how I could support publishers if I wasn't working with publishers, And so being in that service industry, brand strategy industry really, really helped me understand those needs. And then the other thing that happened was I got a book deal. And once I got a book deal, it's like, okay, great. I could dedicate myself to writing full time and finally work on my business in the way that I want to work on it. So what you were saying about if you need money, which I mean, it's fair, how am I supposed to make money, or how am I supposed to create this business in the way that I want to create it if I'm so worried about how I'm going to get funding, or I'm so worried about those things? So it really allowed me to slowly build this business in the way that I wanted to build it.
And then also, just to add to that, what you just said, your relationships grew, your reputation grew. So then by the time you were ready, there's people just flocking to you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
So do both.
Quickly, I'll say the Virgo me, do the math. Some people don't want to be I'm a corporate girly. I love the paycheck, the benefits, the 401k, but some people don't like it. They don't want to do it. Do the math. How much is your health insurance? How much are your bills, your rent, your electricity, your mortgage? Do the math. Do you have business lined up already? Oh, this is going to help me. This is going to give me even cushion for more money. Do the math from your neighborhood Virgo before you decide to go out on your own. You should do it, but do the math first, because you don't want to be out there flailing and then asking your job, can I get a job back? That happened to me at BuzzFeed once. Someone quit and it was like, oh, this isn't working. Can I get my job back? No, you quit. Your job, I hired someone else. Do the math. Thank you.
No, I love that. And that goes back to spending time with yourself, right? Figuring out what work environments do I thrive best in? Because some people are permalancing. The freelance life is for them and they don't plan on looking back.
Yes.
But some people love the corporate structure, and neither one is right or wrong. You just have to figure out what works for you. And that's part of building your brand and spending time with yourself, which you're all going to do after this conversation. Okay. Next question. Should your personal brand be different from the real you? For example, if you're a creative or a filmmaker or a director, basically, should there be a persona? This is who I am when I'm in my craft, in my zone, and then this is the real me, or should it be the same?
I think it's more about privacy. You don't have to give, and this is something that I had to learn because I am so private. The idea of changing my social account from private to public, when I had to do it, it was giving me incredible anxiety. And then I realized that there are so many parts of my life that are just in alignment with what I'm doing because I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about books. And so that feeds into every part of my life. So that is something that is completely fine sharing online. But it doesn't mean that I have to share every aspect of my journey. And I think that's okay. And I think what you'll find is you'll find that middle ground where it's like, these things I'm keeping for me, and you be serious about that. I have boundaries on the things that I refuse to share. And I don't have to, I'm a romance author. I don't have to share all my life story. You know what I mean? I am writing romance. I'm putting a lot of myself in my work as well. And that's the other thing. If you're an artist in particular, there's probably a lot of work that you, or personal work that you are putting into your art. And that is, that can be taxing in some ways. And so allow that to be that, and allow things for yourself to protect yourself. But I think when we talk about personas, it's less about personas and more about what you want to offer up to other people and what you want to hold for yourself.
Come on today, this Friday.
Yes.
Next question. Would it be a good idea to post a review a supervisor gave you over the duration of an internship on LinkedIn?
I think yes. Ask them if they can put a recommendation. You know, you can do the LinkedIn recommendation. So they wrote a good review. Just like, oh, can you ask them, hey, can you put this on LinkedIn for me? But yeah, I still get recommendations from people on LinkedIn. I love it. I think it's great. I also see Staci nodding too. I feel like Staci, you're also in this world. Can also speak more to it, you and Sabrina.
I would 100% co-sign on that. So those recommendations, you can send them through LinkedIn. Keep in mind though, and I didn't talk about this at length earlier, well, I did mention LinkedIn is that's a brand, like you're putting your brand out there through your LinkedIn. So make sure it's up to date. So that's another thing to mention is please make sure it's up to date. Anyone who's applying to us, I did put a link in there about people who are interested in opportunities as well. But if they're applying, I go and I look at their LinkedIn, right? That's the first thing we're looking at. So if you have someone who can speak to your experiences from an internship, from an externship, from a project that you worked on. So you didn't have to be, that's another thing where you didn't have to be paid for that. Right? So maybe it's a project during your undergrad or grad school, what have you, but it's a project that you worked on that can speak to their experience working with you, include that. But 100% make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. I think that's the first thing we're going to see. And sometimes people like recommendation. I love to see that because I may not be calling your references right out the gate, right? But if I can go and I see all of these recommendations that are already written for you on LinkedIn, that also means that that person took the time to speak about you. So we're like, they are actually taking the time out of their day to speak about you and put that out into the world. So 100% leverage those.
The one last strategy I would use is, what is your interpretation of that review? And can you communicate that in a post on LinkedIn? So I had this really incredible internship experience. I actually didn't know that I was going to be able to be successful in this work, but this is what I was able to accomplish. And this is a quote from the internship person. These are some of the things it left me with. Like, allowing people to understand that you integrated and digested it is giving you another prong to your strategy. Your recommendations are going to be what the people who are hiring you are looking at as well. But what is your perspective around what you experience, and how can you share that out personally?
And if you're on here, and I know you're on here and you don't even have a LinkedIn, today can be a new day, guys. Okay, make sure you create a LinkedIn, okay? Because I've met people who should have a LinkedIn and they don't. It's a missed opportunity for so many reasons. So if you don't have a LinkedIn, or maybe you created a LinkedIn and you need to dust it off and update it, that's your homework, because people collaborate on LinkedIn. They find jobs on LinkedIn. They find connections on LinkedIn. Literally, like, you're missing out if you don't have a LinkedIn. And to that point, if you don't know the features, like, you can have people write recommendations to Staci's point. So if you have a professor that you vibed with who will say good things about you, ask them to write a recommendation. It takes 2 seconds. It's free 99. Okay. If you have project leads, church, volunteer, clubs, organizations, it doesn't necessarily have to be a career or a job. Like, anyone who can vouch for your work ethic or your skill or your craft, ask them to write a rec. Okay. I love it. Okay, anyway, I know I keep yapping. I'm just so excited. We have 10 minutes. Okay. Being a college student, long-term work experience for the same employer be better for my brand than the connections made through an internship? It
depends on whether or not you're being challenged and you're still growing and you're making new relationships, right? And so identifying whether or not there is more room to grow and more to learn in that space is important. And aligning with where you want to go next. So if there's a small pivot, or earlier to Jesse's point, like, sometimes you got to step out of the line so that you get more experience and build up your unique offering in perspective. And so I think asking yourself, is there more that I can do here? Is there more value that I can contribute? Is there more value that I can receive from being here? Is the most important question. And if not, then get on out. Your generation is going to have, what did they say, like 18 jobs or something like that. It's a high number. So like, don't be afraid to move around if you need to.
Yeah, I think the one thing on the internship versus job experience thing, I hate to give a little, it depends on what you want to do. I think if you're going full blown creative and you want to go be a filmmaker, go build your network. Like and like go be a PA on set. Like I don't particularly care about you working at a desk if you're really going to be a filmmaker. But I think if you're trying to go more the executive route or work in a company, I think that one of the reasons I stayed at a small company was because after my internship year, they let me work on a desk. So I had work experience so that when I went to CAA to interview, I did not go to the mailroom. I went straight onto a desk, and that helped me skip a lot of steps. And then I had other friends that did lots of internships, and yes, some of them skipped and went straight to desks. Some of them wound up going to the mailroom because they didn't have that like traditional experience at that point. I'm kind of a fan of if you can try to stay at a place a little bit, let you do more so that you show that you can responsibilities. There's rules around what an intern is, but what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But I think if you can show that you've done more than just show up and be around people to network, whether that is in a full-time job capacity or something slightly in between the two, I think PA works for me as well. I think that's good as you coming out of school to probably be able to jump a few steps. I mean, Shari might have, Staci might have another perspective on that. That was kind of my experience when it came from internship going into kind of agency life.
All right, moving right along. So because we have a few minutes, if I could just have one answer per question, just so we can get through as many as possible. How do you let me start over. How do you reinvent your personal brand after being in one industry and trying to break into another?
What I always say is create a bridge. Like, you're not completely breaking up with your old self. You're helping people to understand how the old work that you did or the work that you were doing is related to the new work that you're doing, and will improve it and add an extra layer of perspective to it.
Next question. Any tips for overcoming fear of visibility and putting yourself out there on socials, et cetera, as the face of your brand, and for career growth if you've always been behind the scenes in the past?
I mean, I think you just got to do it. I know it's really, really hard. I know there's an aspect that you're like, I just want to be perfect about it. You're going to stumble, but you'll get in your zone. So like, one of the things that it's a process, right? So you'll feel good about one particular thing, but then when you level up, you'll be like afraid again. So when I finally felt comfortable in digital media, then I had to do an event, and it was like the most people I had ever experienced. And so that sort of stage fright showed up again. And then I conquered that, and it helped me become even better, even on social, about how I talked about the thing, because I was actually operating from pushing through fear, and I was able to actually get more out of myself on that stage than I probably would have been able to do if I was just doing it by myself. So I think it really is about just allowing yourself, the fear is going to be there. If you need to prep for something, like maybe you say, okay, I'll make an outline of like the things that I want to say. And so if you're having to create a video, it's like, make sure I say these 5 points. It makes it easier the next time for it just to freely come out of your head. So I honestly, it's just, you got to jump. That's the best way to describe it.
Just want to quickly add, also ask a friend, a brother, a sister, like, hey, does this post look good? Do these photos look, it just, it's like no one ever wants to walk into a party alone. Like, maybe you just need that person to help co-sign you in your post before you post. So that can help you as well. Also,
very much agree.
No one's expecting you to be Risa Tisa, Jules LeBron and go viral. Like, it's okay. Just go out there, put yourself out there,
I do it every day at work with my like when I have to post for LinkedIn and stuff. I have other people read it because I'm like, LinkedIn is pretty fairly new in terms of like being what it is today, and there's a lot of cringe stuff on there, like really cringe, and I'm always terrified of veering off into it. So I like to have another set of eyes, make sure I'm not being unbelievably annoying.
Smart. Okay, so I have a million more questions, but I have to end it there. I know we're at the end. I'm so sad. I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but just a few things. First and foremost, thank the panelists for being here. I told you this is going to be such a great conversation. I really appreciate you carving out time on a Friday. Woo, yay for the weekend. Can I get an amen? Thank you so much. taking the time to be here and share your knowledge and your insight. Like I said, I learned something, so I know everyone on this call learned something. And thank you to all of the attendees for showing up for yourself today, okay? For yourself and in your craft and your future. Thank you so much. And then just a few more things. Just follow the CSUEA. We do more events like this. This is the first of many. Our next event is October 11th, and we're doing an event with the California Film Commission about tax incentives. Let's go, filmmakers, because we need this education. Okay, October 11th. Again, pipelines, you can follow us. Our information is in the chat. We're a mobile platform that connects underrepresented talent to jobs and training across tech, entertainment, and creative. How many times have I said that? Okay, so thank you so much again for being here. I'm so excited. Continue to invest yourself and show up for yourself, because nobody's gonna advocate like you, okay? Nobody's gonna advocate like you. Happy Friday and have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.